Look how fantastic this is, guys. Because I have this little number at the top right of my table here, an RNG, I can click it, and it'll just tell me what to do. I don't even have to think anymore. And all of the stuff I've studied and learned is just unnecessary because they can never exploit me because the RNG is deciding all my play for me. So obviously that's nonsense. RNGs do have a use, but if you don't know what you're doing with an RNG and you haven't watched this video yet, don't use an RNG. After watching this video, if you've assimilated the information correctly, it may be safe for you to start implementing an RNG into your game. But let's start with why would we do this? And I'm going to get some cards in the air here. We're going to get going with a bit of action as we talk about this. Why would we want to have an RNG in the first place? The thought is that if we're playing against a competent player, then it won't be totally obvious to us in every spot which play is best. And in game theory, which is what we try to approximate against a competent player in a spot where we don't think that competent player has any leaks that we can exploit or we don't know what they are, we're going to want to play a mixed strategy in many situations. For example, if I have Jack 5 suited in the big blind and you open the small blind, I'm going to want to mix between calling and 3-betting as a bluff with that hand in GTO terms. In order to take the decision fatigue away from me, I'm going to defer that decision to the RNG. This is a spot I will not mix. I believe it's better to call ace 9 suited than to 3-bet it. This isn't true in the big blind of all that many hands, but this one is just extremely mediocre. It's mediocre to the point that facing a 4-bet really hurts it, and it's just fantastic as a call. So this is one of the few hands we wouldn't actually mix between 3-bet and call. If I had a lower ace like ace 3 suited or something, I'd absolutely be mixing in some 3-bet here. So I will never be using the RNG on this turn because this is like bang in the middle of my range, right? I'm just not leading ace 9 here. But now on the river, we block quite a lot of ace x here, which I actually think is the bluffing range mostly, and this player's unknown. I'm going to actually bet here, and I'm going to bet for b75. So again, I'm not going to mix this spot either. I'm not using the RNG. I haven't touched it. It's just sitting there idle because I think the best play is just to bet in this spot against pool, against an unknown, against most humans. The reason for that is that I'm not sure people do a good enough job of bluffing the hands they're meant to bluff on such a wet run out like that, like ace highs. I also block some of the hands they are meant to bluff, and I just think leading is going to have a higher expectation than slow playing, i.e. checking there. If I had a hand like Jack 9 or something like a boat that blocked some calling range, then check is a bit more viable. Guys, watching a Carrot Poker School training video is like getting an elite academic education in cash game poker that you simply cannot get anywhere else. If studying poker was like studying, say, law for instance, then choosing the Carrot Poker School would be like getting into the top law school in the country. Imagine getting 33 lectures from such an establishment for less than £1,000. Most poker players struggle because they simply lack the theory necessary to understand the mechanics of this complex game properly. They get disorganized, random content, and rely on the advice of peers in study groups and forums who are also struggling. The Carrot Poker School gives you all of the material you need to achieve your wildest poker dreams. The rest is up to you. To pick up the Carrot Poker School today, click the top link in the description, head on over to carrotcorner.com, add it to your cart, go to checkout, make a payment, and you are done within 10 seconds. You can then download all of our videos and get ready to start your full scholarship. Let's get back to the action. What you'll see in this video is I don't use the RNG unless I think it's a mixed action, unless two things are true. One, I think I'm in a spot where I can't tell which line is better. And two, I think in GTO I have some idea of what the mix frequency would be. So is it a low frequency, medium frequency, or high frequency? When I put those two things together, I'm allowed to consult my RNG to tell me what to do this time. So what I'll normally do in a spot where I am mixing is I'll stipulate low frequency, meaning about 25% of the time. Sometimes I'll just say mixing, which usually means 50% of the time. Or I'll say high frequency, which means about 75% of the time. Sometimes I'll get a bit more specific and you'll hear me say I'm betting my range 40%, but I'm betting this hand 60%, or something like that. But the frequency isn't really important. The RNG is there for a few reasons. One, it's there to take the decision fatigue off of you, the burden of having to randomly generate a decision away from the human. As humans, we're not very good at randomly generating decisions. Try to think of an animal right now, in your head, a random animal. I thought of an elephant and then an antelope. We probably all thought of elephants because there's that famous thought experiment, right? Think about an elephant, or don't think about an elephant, and then you can't help but think about an elephant. So we probably all thought about elephants, right? Let me know in the comments if you thought about a different animal. But the point is, the brain is not very good at being random, so you may think that you're generating a decision at random, but actually what you're doing is you're generating a decision based on some kind of subconscious processing, some pattern, something you've seen earlier in the day is making you bet a certain hand instead of checking it, or something like that. Maybe a video you watched where you saw someone bet a hand instead of checking it, so it's not really random. The other problem is that we have these things called desires as humans. We have these mental game leaks, and some of those are experiencing a pull in one direction or another, i.e. I really want to call here, I really want to fold here, and then if we think we're mixing, I'll say, but this time I'll just call, this time I'll just do what that little emotional voice in my head is telling me to do, right? Which is actually a very strong voice sometimes. The benefits of the RNG, to summarize, are being able to generate a truly random decision and have a more balanced strategy in the spots where we want to do that, taking decision fatigue away from ourselves, and also having a cool little thing in the corner of the screen that we can click and generate random stuff with different colors. So low numbers for me are aggressive. That's why they have a green light color, meaning if you're mixing 50-50 here, Pete, you will want to aggress this time. Call instead of fold, raise instead of call, bet instead of check. It really depends on the spot and what I'm randomizing. The orange number is more passive. So this number is going to denote, we are so card dead here, by the way, guys. Have you ever seen anything like this? Holy shit. That's going to denote passivity, tightness, folding, that kind of thing. There only are 2 colors because I think that's all stars allows you to use. Apparently it's unethical if you use like 5 colors in your RNG. That would be unthinkable, unspeakable thing to do. We do this if and only if we think we're indifferent, if and only if we're happy that one line isn't better than the other, both theoretically, but also exploitatively. What you don't want to do is be like, this hand's a mix in theory. I mix, I rolled a check, this time I check. Then you stop and think, wait a minute, this guy's a station, I should clearly bet there. So you also need to make sure that in practice, in exploitative reality, one line isn't better than the other line. That's the other thing you need to do. So hopefully, PokerStars is going to give us a hand we can play. There we go, perfect timing. Ace Queen. So if cutoff opens, I will mix here. And if button opens, I will pure 3-bet. So I basically already know what I'm doing because I know what my strategy is against those positions with Ace Queen. So there is no mixing here. I will not click my RNG because call would be a slight mistake and also just a play I don't want to do. It's not part of my repertoire to have a flattened range small blind against button. If button 4-bets there, then we have a really interesting decision, but we'll leave that for now. So on the flop of 9-6-3, I'm going to use big bets. This hand can bet as a mix of value and denial. I think my global bet frequency, meaning how often my range will bet here, is about 50% of the time. Maybe a bit more, 55, but I think my hand will bet maybe like 40% of the time. So I'm going to bet this on a 40 or lower, otherwise I'm going to check. And that's just me using the RNG to try to approximate a good GTO strategy. Is it like important whether I bet this hand 20, 40, 60 or 80%? Not really, but it's definitely good just to think about it. So I think this is a pure continue. Can I raise Ace Queen in this spot? I probably can, you know. I think it is just about big enough and dominating enough as a pair draw to raise. We do block some backdoor bets here though. I'm going to mix in a little bit of raise, low frequency raise 25%. The rest of the time I'm going to call this combo. So I call this time. I do a lot of check raise in this spot though, just this hand is a bit mediocre so it does less. Ace King would actually do more raise here, strangely. Now we're very low down our range, we can bet different sizes here. We do have a king sometimes. I'm going to mostly block here. I think we can also big bet, but I'm going to go 75% block and the rest big bet. And yeah, this is what I do with all of my 7s, 8s, 9x, hands like this. Nice hand. Okay, good. So we saw the RNG come into effect 1, 2, 3 times in that hand. Let's go over it. Let me show you how this worked. So not 1, not 2, but 3 uses of the RNG in one hand. That's how it goes, you know? RNG is like when it rains it pours. Sometimes you just use it tons. Sometimes you don't use it for a while. That's the way it goes. So on the flop, I'm against a strong player. I don't have to worry about doing anything exploitative here. I mean, there isn't really anything exploitative I think I can do. It'd be very pig-headed of me to sit here and be like, oh, I have a skill edge on this guy. I'm going to bet the flop because he's going to fold too much or just make up some bullshit like that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to play a sensible game until I actually see some cracks in this player's game or a note that I can take or something like that for the spot. So I do happen to know that in GTO terms, I use a big bet, only a big bet on this board. If you look this up in a solver, the solver will agree because the nut advantage that you have here as small blind is very big. Because your range advantage isn't massive though, it will only bet maybe 50-55% of the time with its range. I think Ace Queen bets a bit less often than the range does, and the only reason for that is that it's kind of a, well yeah, I guess it's just a depolarized-ish hand. But no hand is truly depolarized on this node because the branches of the tree where we bink a queen, bink an ace, these are really, really powerful when we have such a big dominating hand. So definitely check and then pure continue to the sizing villain picks here, which is the right sizing. Villain wants to bet semi-frequently here with a small sizing because they do not have the advantage. So this is exactly what I'd expect a competent player to do here. 7 into 21.8 is good. We are now mixing between call and raise. What I said here is I would give my hand a low raise frequency. I'm not actually sure this is correct. It could even be that the raise frequency for this hand is a bit higher, but I don't mind. I don't really care about frequency. I went with 25. I rounded it to the nearest quarter out of 100, right? The nearest 25%. I could go 50 here. I could go 25. It's one of those two, I'm pretty sure. I don't think it really matters. I rolled a 40 something, I can't remember, and that denotes call. So it's safe to RNG in this spot because I know that call and raise have the same theoretical EV. And I also know that there's no deviation possible against a strong player. So because I know those two things, again, these are our necessary criteria, I'm allowed to go ahead and mix. If I had a hand here, like pocket queens or pocket jacks, I'm not allowed to mix. These hands are pure raises. Aces maybe not, kings I don't know, but queens and jacks definitely pure raises here. So I wouldn't be considering calling with those hands ever. I would just always raise. And so I wouldn't RNG because I don't want to do something bad 25% of the time. The only reason I'm doing it with ace queen is that this hand doesn't care whether it raises or calls. I just think it can't fold. Maybe it can fold. I don't think so though, not in these positions. With something like king, queen, or ace jack, I can start mixing fold. And you have to do your best in these spots, guys. You might be wrong about the frequencies. You might be wrong about the strategy, but you've got to back yourself and you've got to get into a protocol that feels good for you. So obviously after check calling, we now check. We're now understanding on this river that ace queen is really far down our range. We actually don't have a lot of weaker hands in this if you think about it. It's a 3-bet pot. All of our ace king, king jack, king queen just got there. All of our pocket pair is better than this. Our 9x is better than this. Or ace 5 or ace 6, whatever. Maybe not ace 5, we probably don't have that. So here I'm going to be doing a fair bit of block bet. I just have a lot of hands in this vicinity. I think I mentioned jacks here on the river. I don't actually have jacks, but I do have some 9x. I do have some hands like that. Maybe this is a bit more big bet than I thought though, actually, now I think about it. Yeah, I think I probably over blocked this combo, meaning I blocked it at too high of a frequency, but my opponent doesn't know that and it doesn't really matter. But yeah, next time I think I'd use more big bet here because I think things like 7s, 6s, 8s are a bit too thin for me to bet here. And I think things like 10s and jacks and queens are mostly raising flops. So actually, I do have some 9x and things, but I don't have as much 9x as I thought here. And I think my king x can bet bigger for sure. So yeah, mainly B75 here would be right instead of mainly block. There could be a little bit of block, but I rolled this too often. I mean, it did get through, which is nice, but I think the lesson here is that this is an example of bluffing the bottom of your range in a spot where you've strengthened your range by calling earlier and therefore should be betting a ton with your air hands or low showdown value hands on the river. Even if you've got some showdown value here, you should still be bluffing with ace queen, I believe. On the river, I knew I had to bet, so the only thing I actually rolled was my sizings. That's the key point there. I hope this is instructive. I think a lot of people can go wrong with RNG use a lot of the time, and it's really important to see what not to do. And I do strongly believe that until you're comfortable using an RNG, until you know which spots you should be mixing and which ones you shouldn't, you just don't use this thing, as cool as it may look. By the way, there's a HUD stat I got a while ago that gave me this. I think it still exists, and I will put the link in the description for getting this HUD stat. It works with Poker Tracker 4, so I'm sure there'll be lots and lots of comments in the chat about this, because when I make videos on Run It Once with the RNG showing, people were always leaving me comments like, where's the RNG? Oh my god, how can I get that cool thing on my table? I want to be told what to do. So it's fine, I'll give it to you guys. Just promise me, full disclosure agreement here, you will not go ahead and just start randomly mixing hands for no reason without knowing what you're doing. You will only use it if you think this spot is a theoretical mix, and furthermore, you think there's no exploitative deviation available. You don't think there's a better way of playing in reality against your true opponent. If you want to know all about true EV, one of the biggest, most central concepts to being a crushing poker player, check out last week's video. I started reading a book about physics. It's overly confusing. One of the questions that the guy asked in the book is, why does time only go forwards? It's so messed up. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Why does time only go forwards? In cutoff, I think King 9 is just about a fold. You could open this on some soft tables. I'm not going to mix it because I think it's just like slightly losing. Maybe it's okay, actually, I don't remember. This is another point. If I think that opening King 9 in the cutoff is either break even or losing, and I can't remember whether it's slightly losing or whether it's break even, I just won't open it. And if you get to a spot where you're like, this is either a fold or a mix on the river, don't mix, because some of the time when you're wrong about it being a mix, you'll roll a call, and then if you call, you make a mistake those times. Will I range bet ace 8-6 with two cards here that are a bit lower? I won't. and king queen with 2 of these suits. I'm going to pure check this combo in this metric, this framework. I'm not going to mix any c-bet because I think c-bet might be a microscopic EV loss. I doubt it's bad to c-bet small here. It's almost certainly not. Okay, let's roll to see if we go all in. High number. Let's go all in. Obviously only a low numbers are all in, right? The point is, I'm being sarcastic, the point is I would never mix that spot because I'm always folding, right? I don't have a decision to make. If I don't have a decision, I do not use the RNG. If I don't have a mix, that is. What just happened? Why did you make me limp? This was not an RNG. The RNG didn't tell me to do this for some reason. I think I pressed the wrong button. Okay, I think we should limp call. I mean, if I was in the big blind here, I would call, and this is just the same, but there's extra money in the pot. So this is clearly a call. Do I want a 3-bet? No, it's too weird. It's too, like, full of shit. Let's limp call, guys. Let's do it. Let's limp in like a fish and call a raise. Alright. I'm gonna get stacked in this hand now because I've limped. It's like the punishment from the gods. I'm not going to use the RNG here because it's a pure call. But also, the other reason is I have no idea what my limp misclick range is. Maybe it's like any 2 cards, but now like a bit better because I called the raise. I have no idea what the theory of a spot is where you misclick limp call pre-flop, guys. I don't know. If anyone knows the theory of this spot where you misclick, if anyone has good starting ranges for a misclick node, let me know. So this is a turn villains shouldn't really be betting super frequently. I think against the sizing with the 7 unblocking a lot of bluffs, we still have a call here. The 7 kicker seems like a good bluff catching kicker. Maybe ostensibly better than a 10. Although people bet 2 MERS, then that's the thing. I have way more 6x, right? I have way more 6s than him. He has like hardly any 6x. And I block 7-6 of hearts, and I block a6 of hearts. This is a mandatory bluff, and I'm going to lead for b75, I think. This puts villain in a bad spot. So he does make the call. I could also use slight overbet or 1.5. Maybe that's better. Yeah, maybe 1.5 is a bit better, actually. Maybe he's just not indifferent enough there with that sizing. Maybe I have to, like, range lead really big. He has 6 so infrequently. That hand is just, like, clearly a pure lead because of the blocker, so I didn't RNG it. That is one of the weirdest hands in history. If you see that hand in isolation, you're like, what a fish this player is. Can I call 10-9 at the stack depth? Probably not. Probably not. I definitely can't 3-bet it. 3-betting becomes dreadful against that stack. I think calling becomes losing as well. Limp, pre, call a raise, call flop, call turn, donk river. What a fish. What can I say? Okay, 10-9 against. I don't know if this is a weaker player actually. I'm going to remove this tag. It probably is at 3x, right? It 3x'd. I'm going to choose to call here. There are 2 reasons why I didn't mix. One is a weaker player in the small blind. The other is that generally weaker players who open under the gun underfold a little bit to 3-bets. I don't think that's a massive deal for my hand, but it's not great. So as villains should be checking uncapped here, I think we need to bet a bit more selectively. This is a decent board for range. I'm going to bet this slightly less than global, like let's say 40% bets with this hand. I'm going to use small bets when I do bet. In reality though, this is probably a little bit overfolded, so this bet's going to be good. Just meaning people have a bit too much ace-jack here, ace-king, and not enough check calls. The tank check call is also probably a bit too like 6s ace-king heavy. I'd probably barrel a lot on turn after that, but yeah, I think betting flop pure there, if that's definitely a recreational player, may be good. And just not even RNGing, but I think RNGing is okay as well. I'm not too sure. If I'm not sure that there's an exploit, I mean, I'm okay RNGing. A hand would always be a mix in theory. 10s against cutoff, I'm just going to mix. So when I say mix without specifying a frequency, I mean 50-50. So I will 50-50 flat and 3-bet here. Against hijack, it would be mostly flat. Against under the gun, it would be pure flat. Just depends on position. You have an easy check call here. People are going to bet range a lot. When he checks back, I mean, it's good to check back on a6, 6-2 tone at some frequency. This isn't really a range bet board. I'm going to be playing big bet here only. And I don't think 10s is. 10s is one of the pocket pairs that's like the most tempting to bet, but it's still just too thin. Unless you're using a block sizing, in which case you can probably lead this hand at some frequency, but you don't have to, and I'm not building a block sizing, therefore you see me not clicking the RNG in this spot. I'm not rolling. I think my hand is a pure call. I can't see why it would be anything else. There will be like too much kings here and probably not enough air for this line, but still we're calling. You know, like 8s, 9s and things as well. So I'm not RNGing because I think that both raising and folding are large mistakes. You're checking river. Our bluff catcher against the big bet here is, well, we have a bluff catcher first off against the big bet. We do block 10-9, but we also block other 10x bluffs. Do we have a raising range here? I mean, what the hell are we saying we have? Like exactly pocket 8s. I do block 10-9. Is this a hand I raise? Probably not. I probably want like a card on the board here, right? So I don't think this is a raise. Is this a pure call? Or is this a mix against the sizing? So it's certainly a bluff catcher. There's no way we're beating value. Do I want to mix call? Because I think that's what GTO would do. And again, we don't have hearts. No, I think this hand is really bad blocker-wise. I'm just going to pure fold this one. I think having 2 10s there is way, way worse than just having like a pair on the board. I mean, obviously it is. And it's probably also worse than having like 2 5s or 2 3s or something. The reason being that 10s has the same ability to beat value bets as 5s or 3s. It just doesn't beat them. But it does block a lot of stuff. And because of the suits of our 10s, we actually unblocked both the flush draw and the backdoor flush draw. And when villain checks the flop, that's actually not good for us because they're going to bet more with their hearts and clubs there, and they're going to delay more of their bluffs with their diamonds and spades. So we actually block the bluffs they delay in that situation. It's a bit of a more advanced point, but typically, let me pull this up because it's not so clear actually. On the flop here, if villain has clubs or hearts, in practice, they will usually have a higher bet frequency with the 10 of clubs or 10 of hearts in their hand than they will with the 10s of diamonds or spades. If they have air. So if they have an air hand that contains a 10 and they check the flop, they're more likely to have these 10s. Obviously they can't when we do, that's the point. But more of their 10x when they check the flop is the 10 of spades and the 10 of diamonds. Not both at the same time, but one of them. Therefore here we block more combos like king 10 of spades, queen 10 of spades, jack 10 of diamonds, 10 9 of diamonds, this sort of thing. So we block a lot of the air that they don't bet on the flop because they bet their hearts and clubs more than their diamonds and spades. This is how the theory goes. On the turn, when we check and they bet small, we have an easy check call with this combo. By the river, we have calls here like 7x, ace-x, 8x, and then we have calls like 5s, 4s, 3s, deuces, which are much better as bluff catchers than this hand. This hand is probably the worst bluff catcher I can think of. Okay, 10-9 got there, that's one thing. But 10-9 is not a big part of villain's range. They have a lot of other 10x that's bluffing here. So I'd much rather have the busted flush draw to call with in a spot where villain checked the flop. I'd much rather have the busted backdoor flush draw in a spot where villain checked the flop. I don't want to have these black and blue 10s. Black and blue potatoes. Not good potatoes to have. So no RNGing on river because I decided that my hand was a dreadful bluff catcher. And if my hand's a dreadful bluff catcher, we'll just get rid of it every single time, right? We're not going to mix calling into our strategy with a dreadful bluff catcher. But I hope this video has shed some light on when to use the RNG and when not to. You can see it's kind of like a situational optional thing that sits up there at the top of my screen that I will use. I'll be very selective about when I use it. So I use low numbers as aggressive. You don't have to do that. You can use high numbers as aggressive if you prefer. That's totally fine. Shall we mix fold with aces? No. Shall we mix call with aces now? No. What will our 3-bet size be? 8.6 big blinds. Let's go. There will not be much mixing for this hand. There may be post-flop. Post-flop, there's some bit of slow playing you can do. Villain just goes all in. Oh, that's a shame. Club. Who the hell? Who goes all in with aces? Who does this? Like what kind of individual do you have to be to have the thought to just simply go all in with pocket aces there? Like, you have to be pretty insane. You have to be pretty insane. Okay, we'll play one more spot, then we'll get this video wrapped up. Just wanted to send a news flash to you guys today. Just wanted to show you why I use an RNG, how I use it. Because when I stream, it's actually off stream. It's off screen, it's hidden. You guys can't see it. So I wanted to show you a bit of what goes on behind the scenes, a sneak peek at the inner decision-making factory of my head. And the RNG is one of the component parts for that. I nearly folded this hand, but it's actually going to be profitable in the hijack with 2 weaker players on the table. Mainly because of post-flop skill edge and the lack of 3-betting that occurs. Weaker players are, by and large, going to 3-bet you less frequently than regs, although there will be exceptions. 18, very low number. If small blind opens here, we will 3-bet him or her on an 18 every time, because it's an 18. And Queen 9 is kind of a high frequency 3-bet bluff in this spot. It can't call a cutoff open though, so we don't use the 18. What I actually started doing, and I got this from Luke Johnson, Clanty, who's been on some of my streams, did a bit of work with us in the past. Very strong player and strong coach, and one of the things that he advised that I do was to decide a frequency and then click the RNG, rather than glancing at the number and getting this biased view. So in this spot, I won't be 3-betting this hand anyway, but if this was a mix, instead of me saying that's an 84, that's a low number, I'm going to fold. I would actually say I'm going to open the hand 50% of the time and then I would roll. It's just a healthier way of doing things. Okay, so we are just pure checking our range here, I think. King Jack I'm actually okay checking. Probably just going to go for check call, bluff later in this node. The problem with check raise here. Okay, so call and raise are equal in theory here against 100 big blind stack. Against the 50 big blind stack that's a weaker player, you don't want to raise here. Because if you make it 13 or 14, you're kind of baiting them to jam on you and make you fail to realize all of your equity. So if you roll here, it's a huge mistake. This is a spot to just never use the RNG, to just call. Perrin, obviously a nice card for me, not like fantastic here. Villain pots it. I have a feeling he's going to pot it. Oh, 3 big blinds, really. Do I want to raise against 3 big blinds? No, I don't think so. I don't think I want to reopen here. It's a little thin. Yeah, I think I just want to call. So again, no RNGing, because if I was to RNG anything else to go with this call, I would make a mistake every time I did those. Do I want to donk bet river now? I feel like I do after the small bet. I think this will get checked back a lot. I'm going to go ahead and donk bet here. I'm just going to go B60, and I'll fold to a jam. Oh, nice. Queen Jack. Good job, bro. So I can't really save any money against that by checking at value bets anyway, so that's not really a big deal if I get called by hands like that. But I think what's going on there is that the weaker player is kind of merging a lot. When they bet turn, they have a lot of hands a bit weaker than the king. They have some king themselves, but they have a lot of just like 10x, 9x jacks, like stuff that they're merging with. So I think I want to go ahead and donk bet the river there, especially with the spade blocker. It's a little bit thin, but I feel like river's going to go check a ton, so it's an exploitative play. Queen 7 I think is going to be a profitable open against the same player. And this is going to be the last hand of the video. RNG probably won't come into play. Another final point I would make is that the RNG is not going to be used as frequently against weaker players as it is against stronger ones. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope it helps your use of RNGs. Please do let me know any questions that you have in the chat down below. See you guys in the next video. Remember to check out carrotcorner.com for all of our stuff and check out our Twitch channel, carrot_corner over there as well. See you guys soon. Bye bye.